Good day, good people. Among many other things last week, the General Synod overwhelmingly passed a motion affirming disabled people with hidden as well as visible disabilities to be fearfully and wonderfully made in the image and likeness of God, and mindful of the progress already made in removing some of the barriers which disabled people, clergy and lay face, committed itself to working towards the removal of all remaining barriers to full participation for disabled people in the life and ministry of the Church. It was observed that at any one time, 20% of the population are disabled, and everyone experiences it at some stage in their lives, often towards the end of life, but not exclusively so. In the debate, it was acknowledged that this was not a new subject. A similar motion had been passed in 2007, but this did not mean that progress has not been made, and many speakers spoke of their personal experience of living with disability in the Church. The reading for that morning had been the story of the 4 men making a hole in the roof of a house so that they could lower their paralytic friend into the house so that Jesus could heal him. And this was a source of encouragement to us, that the subject is more than loos, ramps and loops, and a challenge to be bold and to create a permissive culture in churches that will enable change to happen. The Synod further called for the Faith and Order Commission and the Liturgical Commission to consider how our liturgies might be made more inclusive for disabled people, for example, by removing rubrics such as All Stand, called upon the Research and Statistics team to interrogate existing data and to gather new data which quantifies the numbers of disabled people among clergy, whilst also planning to extend to include lay ministers and diocesan and national church institution staff in the future as well, so that we can better monitor the representation of disabled people within the life of the Church and encourage accountability for progress. There was also a request that the Archbishop's Council might introduce legislation to amend the Ecclesiastical Jurisdiction and Care of Churches Measure 2018 to require every diocesan advisory committee, the body responsible for church buildings, to include at least one person with direct experience and knowledge of accessibility issues in its membership, or to be co-opted if not already appointed as a member. Finally, as part of the ongoing review of dioceses and recognising that resources for additional officers in every diocese are limited, the vote encouraged dioceses to cluster together to employ a full-time disability advisor across a manageable group of dioceses. I'm very keen that we should engage with this in every way that we can at St. Francis, and I'm delighted that the recently formed Dementia-Friendly Church group has begun to meet and started to consider positive steps that we can make to ensure that we are as safe and welcoming a community as possible for people who live with dementia and for their carers. We also take to heart the importance of supporting people whose eyesight means they need larger print, and we now have orders of service and hymn books in large print. It's important that we respond to the spirit of the General Synod's work as a whole church, and that we do so for fundamentally theological reasons. The motion itself quoted Psalm 139, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And another said, if Christ is not ashamed to dwell in me, I shall not be ashamed to embrace him. At one level, this is obvious to us, but like so many things in the life of the Church, it cannot be taken for granted, and our working out of it must be conscious, intentional, and permission-giving, based on the character of God, which was to assume our human nature in all its frailty, This transforms our weakness into a different kind of strength. And so it is a measure of the quality of our community that we hold this truth amongst us, that it is our dependency upon each other that makes us more like God.